We pay too much attention to how people look at us or to how people view us. But the reason why that is so wrong is that then you would have multiple identities every time you go out.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. And I am Dr. B, I'm your host. And, thinking about, we are close to 100 men right now. We are in December of 2024. And our goal or our outcome for 2024 for this podcast has been, we are going to interview 100 Black men who are doing something that are successful in definitions of success that might not be the definitions that we always think of. Sometimes when we think of success, we think about how much money somebody has. Well, you're not successful unless you have a net worth of over $1 million, then you're successful. And I don't know if everybody believes that. And sometimes we think of success as, well, we have this beautiful wife that we've been married for. And if we're in our 50s, we've been married for at least 30 years. I don't know if that's always what is successful. Sometimes we think of success as the job or the title that you have in your job. Well, he's an E-suite person, or he's a CEO, or he's this, that, then, so he must be successful. To me, and Madiama, you can, enter in here in a second after I introduce you, but, to me, success is living within your purpose. I believe that God put us on this planet for whatever reason he has. And when we're able to live in the purpose and why he put us there, and we're able to achieve that thing. So one of my goals is, how do I teach people to become the person they need to be in order to do the thing they were put on this earth to do? And whether it's, I show up as a PE teacher, in your case, at some point you were a French teacher, or it's a person who picks up trash, but he's working and he's serving people. It doesn't matter what that is. If you're able, and then making a huge difference in the community and teaching kids and making them do what they do, that's what's important. I think that's what our God honors, is people who are able to do that and to follow that pathway. And so this podcast over the last 93 episodes, or I think we're 94, 95 right now, is just me being able to interview and learn. Yesterday I got to talk to a gentleman who had interviewed me, and I had no idea. I mean, he interviews me, and he's a pastor. I knew he's a pastor, 34 years at a church I believe in North Carolina. And we're talking, and I do this interview with him, and I hang up, and he sends it to me. And I thought it was just this great interview because I was this very wise man who had interviewed me. And then I start interviewing him, and I ask him to tell a story like I'm getting ready to ask you to tell your story. He says, I was an attorney. I'm like, what? He said, I was an attorney. I was one of the top attorneys in all of North Carolina in the 1980s. He said everybody knew me. He had ran for office. He'd done all these things. He said that but he was an attorney. He had a gambling problem. And so he got a whole bunch of money, and he literally sat behind his desk and was ready to take his life, at 22. And then he said, I wouldn't do this because of my mom. Now I'm just freaking out, right? I'm like, this pastor of 34 years tells me he's sitting behind a desk getting ready to take his life. Then this is just okay. So what brought you out of that? Well, we didn't get there, right? He goes, so then I just got mad, and I looked across the street, and there was a bank. And so I took my pistol over there and I robbed the bank. And he said, he robbed the bank. He said he got pulled over twice on the way, but because everybody in town knew him, the two cops that pulled him over just let him go right after he robbed the bank. And then he finally caught up with them. And then he goes to the story. He ends up going to prison and spending, 5 years in prison. But you just don't know. And then after that, after he gets out, he has this incredible life where he's helping and serving and making people. And not everybody's story's like that, but you don't know these things until you actually sit down and talk to people. And that's why I'm so excited to talk to Madiama today, is because I know he has a history, and I know he has things that he's done in his life that you can learn from. And for those of you who are maybe watching this as your first one of these Journey to Freedom podcasts, I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to all the new ones that we're going to put on, and then maybe even go back and find somebody who maybe has some of those same similarities as you, has some of those desires that you have. Maybe it's somebody who made it in an area that you want to make it, and then watch what they did and how they did it and how they made it work. And then you can learn from them, and you can learn, some of the wonderful things that folks has been able to do. We started a new podcast this last 2 weeks ago, and it's part of the Journey to Freedom, and it's called Why Love Waits. And so this is a live one where we have a panel of folks. John, you're gonna be like, what? So we're talking about the one of the things is we found out that women, Black women over 40 years old in America, only 50% of them have never been married, compared to in the 1950s where only 20% have never been married. So now we're going, okay, so what is happening that our Black women are not getting married, that are not in these deep relationships, who are not saying, I don't need a man, or the pool of men isn't there, or the Black men are dumb, or whatever they are, that the Black men are saying, well, we had one guy because she's going to get half. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're getting ready to go into this institution that's coming in or married, already believing that it's not going to work and she's going to get half. You don't need to get married if that's what. So there's an issue with how we see each other, and we're starting to unpack that. So we're doing that live on Sundays.
Okay.
And so this is turning into something that is, what God has me in purpose. And so I appreciate you being on today. I appreciate you willingness to just say, hey, I'm gonna be a little bit vulnerable. I'm just gonna tell people my story, and it is my story is my story, right? We can't change that, but we can learn from it. We can grow from it. We can do everything. So thank you for being on. Like I said, you can start from from the time you were born. I think some of folks that I know you told me you're from Senegal, and we have some connection a little bit in Senegal. But I know when I talk to people from Africa or even any other countries, it's different coming to America. You've had to do a little bit more than I had to do by being born at General Hospital here in Denver, Colorado, right? There's some giants that came before me that paved the way for me, where you had to do a little bit of fighting and a little bit of stuff to be able to get here. And so please go ahead and share your story, and we'll chop it up after that.
Well, Dr. B, I have to start by saying thank you so much for even considering somebody like me to be on your show. I am deeply touched by it. I am honored to appear in something that is called Journey to Freedom. You wanting to take time out of your busy life to really put the spotlight on 100 men, 100 Black men, to just study why we are where we are and what can we do about it. It is so commendable that I cannot say anything else without giving you honor. The other day I was recording a podcast, and a young lady told me, I wanted to give you your flowers while you were alive. And I truly appreciate that. Now, a little bit about me. As I said, my name is Madiama Mbaye, but the spelling, usually when I spell it the way it is spelled in my papers, like ID and stuff like that, people, especially here in America, they might not be able to read it right. So I got back to my roots, because in my native language, it would be written this way, Majama. And I teased people and said, just remember pajama with an M in the beginning. And if you do that, then you can definitely read it. So back to back, I will have to talk about me and my story, like yesterday in class, because as I shared with you before we came online, I teach public speaking and leadership here in Aurora at the African Leadership Group. And yesterday we were talking about, like, what are we grateful for? Sometimes people will be like, what are you talking about? We are here to learn public speaking. But I say, well, we always need to start somewhere, but also a foundation. Because if you're building anything in life, you need to have a strong foundation. And in personal development or development in any areas, when you are involved, you are the foundation. So let's be aware of who we are. I know where I'm from. I I was originally born in West Africa in a tiny village called Chale, and this everything that I'm about to share is already in my book that I released 2 years ago. So when I was born in a very big family. My dad had three wives, and my mom was the third one. So of course I have siblings that are older than my mom. These are tricky to share, but that's the reality. And one of those sisters took me at the day she came for the naming ceremony of my younger brother, and my dad offered me to her. And people were like, if you wanted to help this lady, you would have given her a girl, not a boy, because the belief was that a girl would actually grow up faster and be able to help in the household chores and stuff like that. But my dad said, I tell you all that this boy will grow to help her out. So she took me with him in the city. And believe it or not, that's the only reason why I was able to go to school, because all of my other siblings, they didn't go to school, because back then the area where we live in the village, there were no schools. So then really that was a tremendous change for me, but a very welcome one, because were it not for that, then I would have not been able to attend school and to learn to study and be who I am today. Fast forward like 20 some years, or 18 years later, I was a freshman at a university called Cheikh Anta Diop in Dakar, Senegal. That's where I did my studies in African American literature in general, but I was more specialized in Black women literature. I actually wrote my MA thesis on Toni Morrison and Zora Neale Hurston. So around 2000, while I was doing my postgraduate, I had a chance to be invited to come to the US and attend a summer institute at the University of Indiana, um, in Bloomington. So I was there for about 3 months doing that. And when it was over, I was about to go home. But a lady whom I met in Senegal in '99, because I was their tour guide while I was working at a African center, service center, like research center there. So they came and I would take them everywhere, Goree Island and all these other places they needed to visit. So she called me and said, before you go back home, come to visit me in Kansas City, Missouri. I said, yeah, absolutely. So I went there, and then that was her husband and her son, very wonderful people. And to this day, we had a very strong relationship where my kids call her grandma. Like she's the only one they know as family here. So we'll go back and forth. But during that weekend, she shared with me that there was a shortage of uh, people uh, of French teachers there. And were I interested in teaching over there? I said, yeah. I mean, if I have the opportunity, yes, I would love to. So she took me to three different schools the next Monday. We went around. I did some interview. Two of the school told me to come back on Thursday for a second interview, but the last school hired me on the spot. So then that's how I ended up there teaching. But that position was really the beginning of challenges for me, because it was an African American, like dominantly, I think 95% of the kids there were African American. So I thought it would be very easy. Like for me, I consider myself one of them. So I mean, this would be nice. But little did I know that there was a big gap that I needed to bridge. And first of all, it was like anything I tried to do with them, they were always telling me, Mr. Mbaye, you are not funny. your class is boring. But I said, look, let me tell you something. Funny is cultural. I can tell you jokes all day long and you wouldn't laugh because you don't know the culture behind those. So you guys need to give me some time and I'll figure it out. But every day it was the same challenge. I realized that I would not win the battle by just talking to them this way. I needed to do something. So what I did was, at the time there was a blockbuster around our apartment complex. So after school, I would go over there and then like pick a few movies with Martin Lawrence, Chris Tucker, and all those stuff. And I started to pick up some jokes from there. So someday I came to school and I said, "You don't know who you're messing with." I slap people for fun. I quit school because of uh, recess, things like that. And they started to laugh. Oh, you got jokes now. You got jokes. So there, it really started to improve my relationship with them. And believe me, by the end of the school year, the kids didn't want me to leave. It was so cool just being in them, even though there's still something that they told me that to this day rings in my head. They said, "You are a very confused man." I said, "How so?" He said, "You are African, you speak French, and you live in America." And I was like, that make me a confused man? But hey, it was the beginning. It was my journey. In that same year, my wife came to the US with the same type of assignment to teach here in Denver, to teach French at the Alliance Française, which is called, Al- which is a French cultural center. Her experience was absolutely better than mine because she was teaching grown-ups who were interested in learning the language because either they needed it for work or they needed to go like to travel. But all in all, we really realized that Denver was more welcoming. We had a lot of people from Senegal who were already here, so we
Mhm.
decided to make the move and stay here. So while I was here, I worked for a company, and I usually share it like this: I only work in America for 21 months. And then I started my business back in 2003, early 2003. And ever since, that's what I do. We are on our own with a franchise called the Jenny King. So it was commercial cleaning services. So I have customers like hotels as my customers, and we take care of their housekeeping department. But it didn't start that way. In the beginning, it was me and my wife, or my wife and I, we would go like after we are done at work at 4 o'clock, around 5 or 6, we'll go out and then go to clean offices until about sometimes like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and we'll come home, have dinner, go to bed, wake up again around 6 or 5:30, and then repeat. So it was like rinse and repeat every night. So that's how we started. To this day, the business is running. We are no longer physically involved because we have employees, but that really allowed me now to give back to the community by volunteering at the African Leadership Group, where I've been teaching leadership and public speaking for the last 7 years, leadership maybe for the last 2 years or so. But if I was not a business owner, then I would have never been able to do that. But I think the community paid me back tremendously because during those courses that I deliver, really the students or the participants, I was like, as I would like to call them, really told me that I had something to share. They believed in me very early, telling me, "You have to write a book. You have to write a book. The wisdom that you have, you really need to share your story. You need to share this." They really insisted until cohort 8. One of the students wrote a children book. I think from there, I was not able to rest. Every time I come to class, they say, well, if your student can write a book, you can write a book. You have to do this. So really, they forced me into doing that. And my book was out in December 2022. And I was really delighted when you started introducing and you were sharing your like definition of success, which is exactly to the T what I wrote in my book. Success is not about the glamorous. It is not about the yacht or the private jets or the big mansions. You know, success is really living your purpose, but
Mhm.
also being able to serve people day in and day out. And to me, I truly believe that this is the reason why we were put onto earth, because I usually share it like this: God, the Almighty, our Maker, is the one who knows everything. He can do everything. If He wanted to, He would create a world for me, a world for you, and the world for every human being and put them there until they die. But He didn't do that. He created one world and put all of us together. To me, that is an indication that we should not be alone. You
Mm.
know, he
Yeah.
said in the Quran that the human being is his favorite in his creation. So if we understand that, not only then we should know that we are powerful beyond measure, but also knowing that the other person in front of us is the same thing as us. Putting them down is like not knowing who we are. For instance, if you're having anything, somebody who is disrespecting you, you need to pray for them because they don't know who they are. That and that's the reason why they're doing what they're doing. Because if you understand that we were made out of God's image, and He said we are His favorite creation, we are not a small thing. And
Mm-mm.
to me, that's what I truly believe in. Whoever you are, whatever you do, you have to understand that the secret of success is in service. If you help enough people get what they want, you will eventually get what you want, because serving God means serving His creation. Because if you do what He wants, then He will do what you need to get out of this life. I don't know if I went too long, but you know, from where I'm from to being here, I can't imagine doing anything else in my life that does not involve serving people. And if we go by the end, I will talk to you about a project of mine that is really at the bottom of my heart right now, because I know how it could change people's life. Thank you, Dr. B.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Like I was saying, I mean, this, serving his people. I love how you said that. That's, if you're serving others, you're not just serving, just others. You're serving somebody else's creation, that the
Yep.
same creator that created you. I love it. So when I think of what's the name of your book?
Faded to win, 7 steps to meaning to finding meaningful success.
All right, so that's the book you guys need to go get. When we think about identity, because that's one of my pillars is identity.
Yes.
And you have to have a certain identity in order to achieve, right? You have to believe in yourself enough to be able to do things you're doing. So I think about, okay, so you came over and you're teaching, and then you decide to open up your own business. And you have to have a certain identity that allows you to do that. I kind of believe our identity is shaped by the folks that are around us. But for you, what are the things that you believe shape the identity and the man that you had to become in order to do some of these things that you've been able to do?
That's a wonderful question. And I would love to share my thoughts on that, because to me, you know, everything, as I said in that book, the first chapter is sense of direction. It's
Mhm.
really and it starts with self-awareness, knowing who you truly are, which it is sometimes a pity, because a lot of us lost our own identity and are identifying ourselves with what we do.
Oh my gosh,
You
yes.
know, people sometimes they ask you what you do, and if you tell them, they now start to qualify you or start to identify you. But we are not what we do. We are not even our names. Because if you ask me, who are you? If I answer Majama, well, that's not accurate. Majama is the name that was given to me by my parents, but it is not me. Now, who I am, I'm really a servant of God, somebody who is placed on earth to play a meaningful role. It's not like just coming here, doing whatever you do and pass on. I usually share with people, even if we're talking about what you should leave when you go, we need to understand what we are here for. Everybody, all of us will have a start date and an end date. When he say born 1975, passed away 1936, those are the dates in between, but the dash between those 2 years is your life. Now, what would you do with that dash? To me, that's really where you would start to understand that you are more than just a person who's breathing and who's going to work day in and day out and creating stuff. You have to have an understanding of your purpose in order to know who you are and what you were here for. Because as I shared in that book, I said, every tool under the sun will perform correctly if you use it to its intended purposes. If you take a key and you go to a door, if it is the wrong door, no matter how hard you try, that key will not work. But
Yeah.
if you put it to the right door, effortlessly, you can turn the knob, enter the room, and do what we have to do. So we're not here just to take. No, we are here to give. We are here to build other people's up. So if you ask me, who am I? My answer is, I'm a servant.
Oh, I love, I love
First and foremost, first and foremost, because anything else will come later. I am not the job that I am doing right now. I am not like how people think of me, because what's funny is that sometimes we pay too much attention to how people look at us or to how people view us. But the reason why that is so wrong is that then you would have multiple identities every time you go out. Because the way Dr. B is seeing me right now is not the same way that Dr. Mix will see me, or uh, Andrea, or whoever, because they have their own perspective of life, and our experiences is always tainted by the environment we are and the people we meet. The reason why I think, first of all, I came here was to be able to serve more and more people,
Mhm.
because I share this in the immigrant community. All of us, when we came to America, when we were back home, we had a goal. And the goal was, since the conditions we were living in were not the ones we wanted, we had a goal to get out and to discover something new and to make it big someday and help out. But when we come right here, most of us do not set another goal, and that's
Wow.
how we become stuck.
Hmm.
Because the goal is now to be here. You are here. You are experiencing all the changes that are happening. Okay, what is the next step?
What's
The
the
next
next?
step is,
Where do you go?
yes, the next step is not just to go to work to follow a routine. The next step should be, how can I increase the number of people that I serve every day? The bottom line example that I always share with people is, if you put in your mind that $2,000 a month is enough for you to cover all your expenses, you will rarely make above $2,000. But if you put into your mind that I am here, I have 2 or 3 families back home that I need to support, so $2,000 won't cut that. Because you intend to serve or to support other people, God will give you more. You will start making more. They say happiness is like perfume. you can rarely sprinkle it on people without having a few drops on yourself.
Wow. One of the things you said, I guess there's two things you said. One is you reminded me of a poem by Linda
Mm,
Ellis, the Dash poem, and I'm sure you've read it, but I
yes,
wanted to
yes.
go ahead and read it just because for those of you who are listening, if you've never heard this poem, think about what Madiama just said about the Dash. And it says, I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears, but he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For the dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth and how only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spent our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real and always try to understand the way other people feel and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often with a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being
Yes.
read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? That's no
Look,
joke.
every time I share this, the dash, I'm
Mhm.
always reminded by a religious leader who lived in Senegal and who passed away around, I think, 1989.
Okay.
His name was Sheikh Abdul Ahad Mbake. He once told us that between the two wrappings, there is no time to rest. And what that really means is when you were born, you were wrapped around and you were given to your mother. When you die, you are wrapped around and given to God. Because in Islam, that's how we bury people. It is not in a casket or in a suit, but you are completely wrapped around, just almost like the day you were born. And the term we use is we are giving you back to your maker. So he said between those two wrappings, you don't have time to rest, because literally the what you would say, because if you work hard, you always have a sort of a wrapping around your belt, around your waist. You wrap something, you tie it.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
said between those two wrapping, you don't have time to untie that
Wow.
wrap around your waist, which means that that is the most important part of your life. Not the day you were born, not the day you died, but that little dash. What are you doing about it?
That's so cool. The other thing that you brought up when you were talking is when you ask people, what do you do? And one of the things that I've started to begin to learn when you ask somebody that, you are defining their worth because what you do usually has a connotation in our minds of what
Absolutely.
that particular job or career or thing that they do defines how much they're worth. And so when you
Exactly.
say, what do you do? You asking them, and if you think about it, you'll stop asking people that, what do you do all the time? Are you asking them, what are they worth? Because if they then answer and say, well, somebody who's proud and they make, hey, well, I'm the CEO of a company, most of those people you never ask because you already know. But if they tell you they're, a trash collector, for example, now you think differently of them and how you now interact with them based on that actual question that you ask. Because words matter, right? I mean, if we think about that and
Absolutely.
our idea is to serve people, then I don't really care what they do. right? I care about who they are. And if they're striving to become more, who am I to define them by something that they do to make an income right now? That's that's so as you guys are, you're thinking about how you interact with people and serve people. That's, what do you do? I mean, I want you to get to know people, but how about this question? And I can even ask you this question: what are you excited about? And I think that's probably the first question that I ask you when we start to get to know each other. What are you excited about in life right now? What is it that you get to do? Now you see somebody's eyes light up. You see them get to talk about their character. You get to see, now, is this a person I really want to know? If they tell you, so, well, what are you excited about? Well, I'm excited about taking advantage of these people and stealing their money. Then you run, right? You're like, okay, you and I can't be friends. And
Yeah.
part of that comes from our ability to trust, right? And so, trust is one of my other pillars. How did you learn as you came here and had to interact in a whole nother country, in a whole nother culture, and still be able to trust that the people you were interacting with weren't trying to take advantage of you or had your best interest at heart? Because we're not able to trust people. I think we end up being miserable because we're walking around thinking everybody's trying to hurt us.
Absolutely. But look, I think for me, it really came down to the way I was brought up. And what I shared with you earlier, that understanding that we were all made out of God's image and we are all his creation. And he said that the human beings are his favorites. So to me, then when I'm seeing another human being, I'm looking at myself. I just assume that there is nothing, absolutely nothing bad in them. Now, they might act bad, but inherently, they're not bad. So if I go with that presumption, I would always see the best in people. Like to this day, my those who know me would always hear me say this. When I meet you for the first time, my everything in you is at 100%. My trust in you, my love in you, my appreciation in you, everything is at 100%, at 100%. Now, if in terms of trust and confidence in you, if it goes down to 80, I'm out of that relationship. And I'll always tell people straight up, you will do the things that will lower my trust in you, because I just believe that people are good by nature. Now, can they be corrupt by society? Absolutely. They can be corrupt by those around them, how they were brought up, or what they didn't have and they want now without making any efforts. Because Jim Rohn once said that his philosophy in life is that you work hard on your job and work harder on yourself. Because if you work hard on your job, you make something to live with, like you make a living. But if you work harder on yourself, you make a fortune. So those who do not want to work harder on themselves, they try to use shortcuts by sometimes exploiting people or taking advantage of other people. To me, the way we can all work together to elevate the world is by trying to get them understand who they are and what they're worth. Because what you said earlier, sometimes we're the ones who are giving permission to others to treat us the way they do. Because if we don't know who we are, we act like below where we should be. And if we're acting that way, people will treat us that same way. We need to understand that we are royalties and act and work and do everything accordingly. To me, that is absolutely the way we should treat other people. I don't have any trust issues at all, because whoever I meet the first time, I'll tell you, and you are not the other person who did something bad to me. My wife would always say, you don't learn your lesson. This person did this to you. I said, no, it is the other person, not this one. So I will not change the way I act with you because I had a bad experience with somebody else. That's just not me.
So, and I know you're into personal development, which is that's why I want to have this kind of conversation with you, because I think about the 5 people that you have to trust the most, or the 5 people that you let into your closer circle. I mean, there's an outer circle, a middle circle, and your close circle, and then there's an intimate
Absolutely.
circle. And
Yep.
I don't want to touch on the intimate circle right now, but it, I've heard about this. It's called the 25-foot rule. If you're within 25, consistently within 25 feet of somebody who is a high producer, you have a 15% chance. Your production is going to go up by 15% just by being in proximity to somebody who's winning. But on the other end of it, if you are within 25 feet of somebody who is a low achiever, who is negative, who is taking things away from you, then you're gonna take on almost 30%, because in negative, we absorb negative faster than we absorb positive, because we
That's
think
true.
about ourselves negative all the time. So if that's the case, and you think about your life and the people you've been around and the people that you need to be around, and you're trusting people, how do you develop that 5, 10 people of association that you depend on, that you can grow with, that you can move forward with? Because I guess it's kind of like a flower. It's either growing or dying, right? You're either growing and moving forward, or you're
Oh, you
dying
are
and going
dying.
backwards, right? So how do you
Absolutely.
do that? Yeah, I want to hear.
Well, when you were saying that, my thoughts were starting to formulate into, like, we become what we think about. And I think if we are 25 feet from somebody, whatever they're doing, however they're thinking, will rub off on on us, and we start thinking the same way. The opposite is also possible. To me, I would always define it as like birds of a feather flock together. Like wherever your aspirations are, you start to gravitate around people who are doing the same thing. That's the reason why everything for you should start with your thoughts. If I have positive thoughts about life, I would start to hang out with people who are positive, because this is the way I say it. The conversations that we have with ourselves are the most important conversations in our lives. So we need to watch out what we tell ourselves. This comes back to the idea of self-awareness, understanding that our minds are like 3 dimensions. There is the conscious mind, which we use every day, like you and I. When we are talking, I'm conscious right now, but there is a subconscious mind which just picks up everything that is going around my environment or my surrounding, and then puts it inside me and make it a reality in my life. But there is the super conscious mind that we can develop, but it is like something like intuition, when you have those gut feelings that like something is coming to you, or you just have a gut feeling about this business deal. That's your super conscious mind. But the most important of all of that is your subconscious mind, because when you speak certain stuff, I am broke, then it becomes your reality. You are not broke, you are short of money. The two are not the same. So whatever you were speaking, make sure that it aligns with your goal, it aligns with your vision, because the more you say it, your subconscious mind will only hear that and say, oh, this is what they want, let me make it a reality for you. Always tell people not to use the word try, because try confuses the subconscious mind. It's whether you do or you don't. But if you say, I'm trying to sit down, okay, what does that mean? It's either you sit or you stand. Like you cannot be trying to stand. So trying, words like that, and a lot of other words that we use sometimes without even paying attention. Like I learned this from Robert Kiyosaki long time ago, maybe around 2003 when I just started my business. He said, "Don't say I can't afford this, but rather ask yourself, how can I afford this?"
How can I afford this? Yeah.
So whenever and I eventually set it into like, if you want to grow, you need to start asking yourself open-ended questions
Hmm.
that does not require a yes or a no. How can I do this? How can I achieve that? Like things like that will make you think more. Because as Henry Ford said, like thinking is the most difficult thing, and that's the reason why little people, like a few number of people, indulge in it. Do we really take time to just have a reflection on our life and think about what we need to be doing and just like concentrate? Most of the time we just go with the flow because that's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, we think we're thinking, and we're really not. One of my favorite sayings is uh, that you can act without thinking. Like you
Mhm.
can drive a car, you're not thinking about driving a car and all the things that you do with, right? So you can act without having to think. And sometimes we act and we should have thought before we said what we said.
Exactly, you are absolutely
But
right.
you cannot think without words. And so the
Mm.
words that you say to yourself, the words that you say to others, the words that are part of your vocabulary, the things that you do are so vitally important. You have to guard the things that you say, especially to yourself, especially to the other people that you are around, because you can't think without the words. I mean, if you try to think right now without words. Now there's pictures and stuff that enhance, but we've learned a language, whichever language, and in your case it's a couple languages, and you have to think in one, and you have to use those words. And so find words that will enhance and take you to where you want to go, instead of finding words that bring you down to where you don't want to be, and so it is so
Dr. B,
important.
that is so powerful because sometimes you can even say that your level of vocabulary might actually define where you will end up in life because of what you just said. We think in words. In public speaking, because most of the people who participated in the classes in the beginning, they were Africans, like coming from Africa, and usually they speak like 3 or 4 languages. I speak 3 languages. I read one and write one, and then I have a conversation on, on another one. But I speak Wolof, French, and English. So sometimes what confuses us is that when we are speaking and when we are thinking in a different language than we are speaking, most of the things that we say would not make sense to the receiver because they don't understand the thought process that is behind. So in order to speak, then, like whenever, wherever you're invited to speak, in order for you to say things that people will understand, you need to think in that same language. That's what I wanted to add about the thinking
Yeah,
and the words and stuff like that. Yes,
that is so true.
absolutely.
So
Oh,
it's important then, and I'm kind of saying this with a light heart, is that when you're talking to yourself, make sure you don't need a translator.
yes. Oh, wow. Well, if you need a translator to do that, you are completely lost. You are completely lost.
You're talking to yourself and you're, oh, what is that? You're telling yourself
Oh,
what it means inside.
wow.
Uh,
Wow.
it is
Beautiful.
so. Oh my gosh!
Beautiful.
Yes, when you think of the importance of the words, and increasing the vocabulary, and being
Mhm.
around people who are going to say those things that are super important to you. So, moving just a little bit more, just as we're saying on the same topic, and we're talking about public speaking, and we're talking about these fears that we have. I wrote a book. It's called "There Is No Tiger," and "There Is No Tiger" is about overcoming overthinking and controlling anxiety. And the realization in there is that we run these reels in our mind over and over again of things that could possibly happen. When we
Yes.
think about the tiger of the old days, that was a real and present danger that he
Mhm.
could eat you and you would die. That is what fear is. But
Yes.
this thing we call fear, like I'm afraid to speak in public. No, you have anxiety about speaking in public, and that
Yes.
anxiety you're trying to control because you're running this reel that says if I speak, they won't like me. And if they won't like me, I won't be able to get a job. And if I won't be able to get a job, I won't be able to feed my family. And if I won't be able to feed my family, I'll feel like a failure. And if I'm a failure, then my family won't respect me and they won't love me. And we go down these roads.
The rabbit
What is
hole.
that's going to happen, right?
Let me share something with you in there. I think the way I solve that problem, to me, it is very simple. Like the reason why people are afraid of speaking in public is that they put in their mind that they want something in return.
Mm,
So they are afraid of failing in that because, as you perfectly explained, fear is nothing than false evidence appearing real.
mhm,
We are talking about this. What if this happened? What if that happened? What if this happened? But if you just change your perspective, and this is a line that's how I start every public speaking cohort, and I get this from Dr. Wayne Dyer. When
mhm,
you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
mm.
So then, to me, if I change the approach of public speaking from not receiving to giving, it changes everything. Because if I put into my mind that if I speak, they might not like me, I want them to like me. If I speak, they might not appreciate what I'm saying, or they might this. All of those, if you turn it around, it is wants. So you were afraid of not having those wants. So what if you turn it around and say this, like, my message is so important that it can change these people's life. I have a gift that I need to give them, and if I don't, nobody else will. Because I truly believe that we are all gifted in some way, and the gifts that was planted in us, we're the only people who can give it to other people. Therefore, we need to speak up. That's what I'm working on right now. My second book is called Speak Up, I Can't See You. Not I can't hear you, but I can see you. Because I'm just like trying to show to people that before you can, like, speaking was reserved for the elite.
Mhm.
But like right now, if you are not speaking without the voice, you become invisible. And as your podcast is really talking about journey to freedom, what can we do as Black men to really make it in this world? We need to start by cultivating our voices and make it heard.
Yes, yes.
To me, it is very important, whatever it is. Because look, uh, they say sometimes that history is always written by the winners. There are a lot of things that are said in those things, and we keep repeating them. Well, we can change that. We can become the winners like right now because it is our time. For us, if it is not now, when? If it is not us, who? We should not let the past continue to dictate the present and form our future. We might think that we are powerless because of the system, the systemic racism, or like discrimination, or all of this stuff, but we can play a part. It is by raising our heads up, understanding that nobody can put us down without our permission.
Without our permission.
I just believe that we are strong, we are powerful beyond measures, but we need to act like we are, not just listening to other people telling us what to do or where to sit. See, that's the reason why I think in our communities, we need to teach more of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Because if somebody has a hold of your time. They put in your schedule where to be and what to do, how to dress. They basically own you. But if we can live our lives by design, it is really when we can create jobs, when we can create businesses to elevate us, but also to elevate our people.
Wow, that is so good. Wow, that thank you, Madiama, for just expressing it in that way, which is so important. One thing that I'd love, we got a few minutes left, and I'd love you to just, whatever we didn't talk about. We talked about some incredible stuff, but I want to give you the opportunity to really talk about whether it's whatever you're excited about or anything you want to add to our conversation here, because it has been, man, I'm like kind of lost for words a little bit just because I'm trying to process some of the amazing
Well,
things you just said. So thank you.
Dr. B, let me tell you something. When I was invited to this, as I shared with you earlier, I said, well, all the five pillars that you said, maybe I can't speak of any, but maybe the lack of them is even a subject. For
Mhm.
instance, when you talk about finances, I truly believe that when I first came to this country, if I had somebody who held my hand and then showed me how finances work in this country, I would have been in a different place right now. So everything that I didn't have when I just got here, that's what I would like to provide to people who are coming or people who are already here. That's the reason why I'm working on a project called Mentium. And Mentium, the word Mentium comes from the law term haciendo Mentium, which means the coming together of the mind. In law, for instance, if we have an agreement, a contract, and we agree verbally, that's what we call haciendo Mentium, like the minds understand what we want to do and we agree on them. Now, I started Mentium as coaching platform because myself, I'm a certified executive coach. And when I started that business, Mentium coaching, I start seeing more that I could do with it. So I started a podcast and I called it Mentium. Now I am getting ready to launch Mentium Institute, and where I will be able to share. And this is not just me. I am inviting a lot of other people to come and join me. For instance, I say Mentium is built around the three C's. There will be courses to really teach people and to give them the skills that they need to succeed in life and to really make it big, whatever success looks like for them. The second C is coaching. Why coaching? We know that all the greatest athletes in the world could not do it without a coach. But for some reason, we put in our mind that we can live our lives without a coach. We can do like whatever we want to do without a coach. So to me, as a coach, I understand that the person in front of me is full and complete. So I'm not there to teach them anything, but I am there to introduce them again to themselves because they might not actually know who they are. But also, the main difference that we are making from all the other learning platform is the community aspect of it, because there will be a community. People don't realize it, but when Facebook was first launched, it was about networking. All of these other platforms, they were about networking. You certainly met somebody you didn't see like in years.
Mhm.
You were happy about it. But if you see in recent years, it got commercialized to a point where now it is called social media. Everybody is a news reporter. Everybody has something to say, and most of it is toxic. What we want to bring is a platform where people can learn, but also have the opportunity to be coached by people who've been there, done that, being mentored, but also have the communities side of it to really hold people accountable. So I need people who will be teaching financial literacy, because to me it is important. Without that, no matter how much you have, you cannot manage. So financial literacy for me is number one. Number two, entrepreneurship. As I shared earlier, you can work hard in your job to make a living, but if you work harder on yourself, you will make a fortune. So, right after that, I would like to introduce people to public speaking. Because then, if you have the business idea, you are forming your business, you would need to go out and pitch the business idea to people in order to gain supporters. So, then knowing how to speak in publics would be of a paramount importance. Then, after you've done that, what is next? Understanding the basics of leadership, because the only way you can succeed in life is by being a leader. And sometimes when I say that, people will be like, "What?" I said, "Yes, even if it is a leader of one and it is yourself." So then to me, leadership is absolutely crucial. From there, really, if we have those four pillars of the foundation of success, then we can expand to mental health. We can expand to mental fitness, because most of us, we just go our life day in and day out without a holistic approach, which is taking care of ourselves also. Because sometimes selfish is not being selfish is not bad when it is self-care. Because if you are not around, you cannot help other people. Whenever you get on a plane, when they talk about all of this stuff, when they talk about the oxygen mask, they would ask you to put it first before you can try to help somebody else. So sometimes selfish is self care. So this is really what is lighting my fire right now. That is something that I'm so passionate about, because I know if we can have something like this for us, by us, there is absolutely nothing that can stop us.
That's so good. Well, hopefully people will contact you, and I thank you so much for being on the show today. You know, like I said, for those of you who are watching or listening, subscribe. You know, there is going to be something that you're going to hit that's going to make a difference in you and the people and the associations that you're around. What I see in this is something that's spectacular, not just because of the content of what you're sharing, but because of the relationships people will be able to make as a result of being in the program and being part of what you do, and what they can do together, right? We are more together than we ever can be by ourselves, right?
Absolute, absolutely. And you made a wonderful point, and I forgot to mention this. Whoever is interested, and this is the way I said, if you think you are where you should be in your life, this is not for you. But if you believe that there is more you can do, there is more you can achieve, please join us by visiting mentium.org and reserve your spot, because we will be launching soon in 2025, early 2025.
How do you spell Mentium?
Mentium, that is MENT, as in Tom, IUM, mentium.org.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you again for being on and sharing your story with us. Several times you reminded me of a poem that I used to have a radio show when I was in California, and I would end my show every time with this poem. And several times you mentioned some of the words that were in it, and so I wanted to read it as we leave today. And so for those of you who are listening, maybe just for the first time, please subscribe. Please share this. If there's something that meant something to you, it will probably be something that will mean somebody to others. If you ring the bell for notifications, we'll send you notifications when we're doing things. I have a goal setting workshop. This is if you're in 2024 when you're listening to this, on the 31st, we're from 10:30 to 1. We are going to talk about setting goals, and the theme is, if you focus only on the goals that you set, you're going to struggle. And so we're going to talk about what it means to be in control of your outcomes and not on things that you can't control. Like you said, I want to have 200 customers next year. You can't control that. You can't control how many people show up at your doorstep. But what you can control is the activity that will bring 200 people to your doorstep. And so we're going to talk about that and how that works. And so, if you look on here, click on our brianarnold.com/2025 goals. You'll be able to get there and register. And so, thank you for being on. I'm going to end the show with this. Madiama, hang on, don't leave me right after this. But our deepest fear is that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frighten us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, famous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are all born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not some of us, it is in every one of us. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And so thank you for being part of today's show. It was amazing. Again, thank you, Mama. And we will look for talking to you on the next one. Have an amazing day.